myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Delighted to see I'm joined by Mick Lowes. Good morning, Mick.
Morning, Stephen. Are you well?
Very good, mate. Very good. And all the better for some football returning at long last, albeit friendlies for now. But two games have been played since we last hooked up. And Newcastle, of course, took on Gateshead behind closed doors. And we've seen the goals on the club website. A bit of a warm-up game, getting back into the flow of things. But yesterday had a bit more of a professional feel about it. The club broadcasting the game live. And, a good chance for the squad to get a run out to test their fitness levels, and a good chance for us to see the new signings as well that we've managed to accrue so far in the shape of Nick Pope and Sven Botman. But what have you made of those opening games, Mick?
I'm never a great believer one way or the other, Steve, of preseason friendlies. I mean, there are some preseasons where you go, you might win 6 games on the bounce, you might win 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, 8-0. And then your first 3 games of the season, you might getting beaten completely differently. So there is no real hard and way fast of doing pre-season, and there's no real way of dictating whether that means we're going to do well, whether we're going to do badly, whatever. The first thing that always springs to mind is you just want to make sure that nobody gets injured, nobody picks up something silly, nobody gets a serious injury. I mean, I remember famously, Shearer at Goodison in 1997, 2 days after Les Ferdinand had been sold to Tottenham Hotspur. They desperately then try and get Les back from London. He wouldn't come back because, he was promised to Tottenham Hotspur, and we miss Alan Shearer for a long part of that season. And that's an absolute disaster. And likewise, still these days, you worry about Callum Wilson, you worry about Joe Willock went down in an interview in an injury yesterday. Joe Linton's absolutely wiped out one of the Germans at one point. I mean, these are the sorts of games where you really don't want any sorts of anything untoward. And certainly, I'm sure advice goes on between respective coaches and respective managers to say, just take it easy, just take it easy. So from the injury point of side of things, let's just hope they go the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, games that they play without picking up a knock of some description. And then over and beyond that, it's about fitness. And let's just see, as you've said there, let's have a look at what they look like. I mean, we know pretty much all of them to date. We knew Matt Targett, who's now an established player. We knew enough about him last season. Nick Pope will have seen enough about him at the Premier League. Botman's is the sort of unknown. Not many people will have seen him firsthand. We only saw him for 30 minutes yesterday afternoon. But I have to say, he looked accomplished. But then he's playing at a pre-season game where he's not under an awful lot of pressure. He's not under really an awful lot of duress. So let's hope we see a little bit more of him on Monday and then subsequently at Benfica, etc. So, but Botman's the one at this minute in time that you'd be very interested to have a look at. And also, of course, with Botman, have a sort of indication, if we can get an indication, as to who Eddie Howe might be thinking about in time, in respect of his centre-backs come Nottingham Forest against August the 6th, because he started yesterday afternoon with Lascelles and Dan Burn, and then finishes it with Shah and Botman. How's it going to end up? What's it going to end up? What's Eddie Howe going to do? Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to bear in mind that 1860 are just equivalent to probably a mid-table, bottom-rung championship team. They didn't get off to the best start with their friendlies, but it's as you say, friendlies are friendlies. I think what I got out of yesterday's game was that Jamal Lascelles is no different.
No.
Might be a bit fitter, but he's still, clumsy at times and susceptible to giving away, a daft goal or making daft mistakes. Booked in a friendly. Wow. I mean, it was
no doubt.
Yeah, definitely not. I thought, and this was my opinion, just from what I could see, it wasn't great. It wasn't great coverage. We didn't see every angle, but I didn't think Elliot Anderson looked out of place.
No.
I thought he's come on leaps and bounds since I last saw him in the flesh down at the Stadium of Light when he played for, for Newcastle's under-23s against Sunderland's first team. I thought Sven Botman looks the real deal. He looks really accomplished. He seemed to come into the team and bode well. I thought Ryan Fraser looked better than ASM. I think ASM. I got again. It's
he looked inconsistent, didn't he?
Oh, ASM, man, he's so frustrating for me, Mick. And I've got to be honest, because you're in that mindset. When the camera panned to the bench, and I think ASM had been down on the floor for the third time in about 20 minutes and was doing his usual gesticulating, etc. You were looking at the bench and they were laughing, and I thought, are they laughing at him? Have they just shared a joke? You just wonder whether the team get as frustrated with ASM as we do at times as supporters, But
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
But overall, I thought Shelby looked fitter than he has done, and it's not difficult them looking fitter than last pre-season because everybody was unfit. But I just thought there was a lot of hope, and the key player for me in that midfield, Bruno's world class. We can see he is a step above everybody. But I thought my big hope was you've just stole the words right out of my mouth. Sean Longstaff finished the season on a high, and I thought I hope that lad can start the season on a high, and he's played 2 friendlies. He scored 2 good goals, and he looks as if he's coming back to what we hoped he was going to be 5 years ago.
Well, what he is, without wanting to single out on of Sean Longstaff, because obviously it is a pre-season friendly, and it's wrong to sort of think, well, he could be this, that, he could be that. The big difference with Sean Longstaff is, unlike previous to the Sean Longstaff that we've seen and maybe found a little bit frustrating or whatever, the difference is the lad feels loved. And the reason the lad feels loved, Steve, is because he's got a whacking great big contract, and he's got a manager who believes in him, and believes in him because he said, right, here you go. This is how much I want of you. I want that contract from you. So of course you're going to feel loved. You're going to feel wanted, and you've got better players around you. You've suddenly got Bruno bouncing off you. You're thinking, God, I've got the opportunity to wear a black and white stripe with a Brazilian international at my side, and I've got a new 6-5 whatever year contract it was. I mean, he has got to be anything other than really, really confident, full of adrenaline, full of confidence. He looks like a different player. But is he going to end up playing first 11 against Nottingham Forest if somebody else comes in terms of signings between now and then? We don't know. But as you say, he was as proven couldn't be yesterday afternoon. But that's easier said than done.
Nick Pope, of course, didn't have a great deal to do. He got the nod ahead of Dubravka in the friendly, but the one save he pulled off was a good one. He had to go far to his left and tip it around the post. But I think there's still a bit of a way to go in these friendlies, and to decide from Eddie Howe's position who he's going to start with as number 1.
I mean, let's cut to the quick, Steve. Let's cut to the quick, because, as I say, I had it in my mind. Let's talk a little bit about pre-season. But the 2 most important things that came out of yesterday and that pre-season friendly in Austria, one was Eddie Howe's post-match interview, and the three very pertinent points he made. One was, he said it's been a difficult market. 2, it's been high prices. And C, there have been very limited availability. So that tells you just how difficult it's been in order to get players in and get players out. The bigger story from yesterday is a fella called Darren Eales, because finally, Steve, we have a chief executive. We have somebody to work with Dan Ashworth. We have somebody to work with Eddie Howe, to work with the financial side of things, to work with the playing side of things, to work with deals, to work with all the sort of elements of a football club that we haven't had to date. So the signing of a chief executive, nobody knows an awful lot of him. He's been here and there. He's come from Atlanta in the United States of America, but he's English, he's British, but he is exactly what we want. If he turns out to be the greatest chief executive in the world, fair enough. If it doesn't work, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But what we have done finally is we've nailed down a chief executive to work with a director of football, director of sporting, call it what it is. And if you look at it, if you're looking, and I'm sure everybody watching this morning will have looked at Darren Eales. Darren Eales has two main connections with Newcastle United. One is that he was legal counsel for West Bromwich Albion and then went on to be director company secretary at West Bromwich Albion with Dan Ashworth. When Dan Ashworth was at West Bromwich Albion as technical director, his company secretary was Darren Eales. Darren Eales and Dan Ashworth were peas in a pod at the Hawthorns against West Bromwich Albion. The other interesting one is, which people might not have necessarily picked up because they might not have looked at it or it might not have clicked, is that in 2018, after he'd in 2014 become president of the newly formed LMS Atlanta United, he did the deal that saw the highest fee for an MLS player to, guess who, Newcastle United from Atlanta United. He signed Miguel Almiron from Atlanta to Newcastle United in 2018 for 21 million. So the guy has clearly an ability to do deals, and he's done that was at its time, I don't know if it is now still, the highest fee for an MLS player, 21 million, Almiron to Newcastle. So obviously Miguel Almiron is still at Newcastle, and now Darren Eales is there as well. So again, there's a connection there. What it means, what it leads you to think, I don't know, but it is of interest.
Yeah, I think it just shows that we are getting our house in order. I think, you know, they haven't just dived in, Mick. This is the thing. I
agree.
This is the thing that impresses me the most about the new owners. In you know, there will be times where we end up criticising or questioning what they do. But so far, so good. They didn't dive in with a managerial appointment. They didn't go for a high-profile name just because the paper said go and get Pochettino. They didn't.
And do you know what I say, Steve? This has upset me this week because I mean I might be in a roundabout way something that one or two people have said, but I made a point online of saying yes, Kevin Keegan did great, but Kevin Keegan had Sir John Hall, he had Douglas Hall, he had Freddie Shepherd, he had Freddie Fletcher, he had Alistair Wilson who helped fund the Keegan signing from the breweries. He helped Russell Cushing. He had Tony Toward. There was a lot of football people at St James's Park, and my argument at the time was, at this minute in time, poor old Eddie Howe has just really got Dan Ashworth. Now I know that Amanda Staveley, Meher Gadusi, the Rubens, and those at PF have got involved to a degree. But let's be honest, they are not die-hard football people. They have not got a football pedigree. They've worked in the business of football. Now, that wasn't a criticism on my part in any shape or manner, because like you, I agree, it was important we got the right people. That's why we took time to get Dan Ashworth. Now, as it turns out, it may well be that the reason we finally got Dan Ashworth is because Dan Ashworth has a relationship with Darren Eales. So now we've got Darren Eales as the chief executive. And both of those deals have taken a little bit of time. What happens these days, Steve, and this is what annoys me, is people should just assess the football club and assess what's happening at the football club on its merits. Everybody is either anti this or are blowing smoke up everybody's backside the other way. So it's either good or it's bad. It's right or it's wrong. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just look at something on its merits, take it properly, look at it, think about it, and say, right, okay, do I think that's right? Do I think that's wrong? And as it turns out, they will invariably, and I've said this 100 times, trust them, they will get it right. They've now got it right with Eales to play with Ashworth rather. I'm sure that the lack of transfers that have happened to date will happen in time. But everybody just seems to be knee-jerk. Everybody wants it really too soon, and others think when others aren't giving it too soon, they think that they're negative. Just take your time.
Yeah, and again, look back to the last 14 seasons. There's been virtually no activity in the transfer window, and we've already done business. And this week, I think it's been a big week, Mick, for getting people out. And that's been a problem over the last couple of years. We haven't been able to get some of these people off our wage bill. And
absolutely,
although permanent deals haven't been the order of the day this pre-season so far, we've got rid of Hayden to Norwich on a season-long loan. He may well come back and develop. We've got rid of Kieran Clark now to Sheffield United on a season-long loan. We've got rid of the other bits of driftwood. We probably still need to get rid of Dwight Gale. Jeff Hendrick's gone to Reading on a season-long loan. So from my perspective, we are doing things this summer that we haven't been able to do in previous summers.
And what I'll tell you, Steve, is they are the easy ones to do. They are the easy ones to do. It's easy to get rid of players that you definitely want rid of and you're definitely prepared to take regardless. In the same way, and I'll give you an idea with this one. In January, they were easy deals to do in January. Dan Burn was an easy deal to do. He was an easy sell. There was a fair amount of money involved as well. Chris Woods was an easy deal to do. It was overpaid for starters. 25 million for Chris Woods was an easy deal. Matt Targett was an easy deal to do. Aston Villa, he was surplus to requirements. He was on loan. It was an easy deal to do. Trippier was a clever deal, but again, it was a relatively easy deal to do once Trippier decided that he wanted to go to Newcastle. The one that was a little bit of a tough deal to do was Bruno, but Bruno was well paid and well rewarded. His club decided they want. So basically, 4 of the 5 were pretty straightforward and actually did very, very well. These deals are the tougher deals. The summer deals are the tougher deals. This is why Eddie Howe used those phrases yesterday. It's a difficult market. There's high prices involved. There's high prices involved with Newcastle now because they know Chris Woods was 25 million in January for starters. There's very limited availability as well because everybody wants to try and pick up players. Henderson goes here, Henderson goes there, Eriksson goes here, Eriksson goes there. So it's a difficult deal. And the other reason as well is while people are sort of scratching their heads and they're saying, well, why is Almiron still there? Why is ASM still there? Would what would Lascelles be so? Would he still be there? It's nothing to do with whether they are wanted by Newcastle. It's whether who Newcastle want, and then subsequently the dominoes go. So if they sign a wide midfield player, a top wide midfield player, which we're told allegedly they want, I can guarantee you that if that player, whoever that player is, once he finally goes, then Almiron will go, or ASM will go, or somebody will like that go. Because it's about improving your current squad and then getting rid of what was already there. So there's so much work to do. There are so many permutations on the deals, depending on whether it's the player that you've got or the player that you want.
Yeah, Banana Man says, morning lads, it's a great appointment with the new CEO. The club's definitely going in the right direction. How are the lads? Craig says, morning Steve and Mick, a great appointment of Darren Eales as our new CEO. With him and Dan Ashworth in the top 2 jobs at the club. It's proper football. People run things now, which I think is important. It's the connection with football, isn't it? I think that really gets you the hairs on your back of your neck standing up. These 2 guys know what they're doing, Mick.
Well, it's potentially it is. I mean, that's what I'll say. You know, again, people might say this is part. It's not part negative, but it's realistic. This is what I'm talking about. You know, the merits of Darren Eales. There's a 2-minute interview online in Twitter. See if you can find it. I can't remember whose site it was on, but it's a very interesting. It was done 2 or 3 months ago. It was about Darren Eales when he was at Atlanta, and he was talking about potential movement with the Premier League. And he talked interestingly about, I find the potential of the US market easier and better to work through than the Premier League, because the Premier League's an easy one. The Premier League has millions from Sky. It's got 50,000 people every week. Atlanta, he had to work it hard. That's how he had to sign Almiron. That's how he had to get Atlanta to be supported. So he's a clever guy. He's got an economics degree from Brown, one of the greatest colleges in the United States of America. He's then a law graduate from Cambridge University. You know, he went as a high counsel into West Bromwich Albion. So he's worked the legal side of West Bromwich Albion. But if you said to me, do you believe that he's the real deal? We don't really know. Unlike Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth has worked at a Premier League football club, Brighton and Hove Albion. He did a very good job at West Bromwich Albion. And then, of course, he organised St George's Park. So, you know, he has done and ticked virtually all the boxes. Darren Eales, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but not proven when it comes to the Premier League. So let's just wait and see. But the relationship he has with Ashworth suggests to me that that's exactly why they've got the job that they wanted.
I agree, and long may this progressive building continue at Newcastle United. It can only be a positive for us. Okay, keep your questions coming in. I've seen a few coming in. I've highlighted them. Let's go with this one from BJT. It says, good morning, Mick. What do you think about the plan to put in rail seating at St James's Park? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Safe standing, Mick. It's been trialled at certain clubs. Anfield, I witnessed it there. I thought it was good, Mick. I mean, it doesn't increase the capacity. It just gives people an option to stand. What do you think?
Well, I mean, all I would say is that, you know, I am of a generation. I don't know. I mean, presumably you were, but you would have been not long after seating kicked in. But, you know, back in the day, you know, that's all we knew. That's all we knew. You know, for the majority of us who couldn't afford to sit in a seat and didn't have season tickets, you just stood on terraces, stood in front of crash fences and crash boards, and watched a game of football. And there, you know, the problem was what created and the powers that be having to become all-seater stadiums. I agree with it. And I would hope it would be safer these days than it was before. And if people want it, then that is the bottom line. If people, you know, I think the most logical thing for Newcastle United to do, and I suspect most football clubs will do it, is that if it is provided for by the powers that be, you basically just poll your populace. You say to your supporters, do you or don't you want standing seats, standing terracing? And if they say yes, then go with it. Yes, it creates more. Is it cheaper? I suspect it has to be cheaper, of course. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it will be a throwback to days of old, and it will be interesting to see how it compares to the 70s previous, and the way that terraces were back then.
Yeah, I mean, 1984 was my first game, and I remember standing. It was it was part and parcel of the game, mate. It was
absolutely.
Look, the safe standing is good. I've got to be honest. I feel safer standing with the barriers there, with your seat still there, than I do standing at some of these aging grounds like Leeds, for example, where it's not designed to stand. It's designed to sit. So yeah, I think it's a welcome addition.
And if you're falling over seats, which is what people do, then it can cause more problems than the standing itself. So yeah, let's wait and see.
Yeah, and to be fair, we're going to be standing up a hell of a lot more than sitting down at Newcastle's games now that we've actually got something to cheer, Mick. So it does make a bit of a difference. That I've got to be perfectly honest. BJT also says, because we do not own the ground, do you think that with the new CEO we can exhaust every avenue on the commercial element in terms of income, such as concerts, etc., and reap 100% of those benefits?
I think, as I said before, if you can find it, have a little look on Twitter. It was about 2.5 minutes worth, but it was some very, very interesting stuff from Darren Eales, talking about how he had to, as president of Atlanta United, and it was a launched MLS franchise, so it was a new club, had no soccer, as they of course call it in the States, so they had to create an environment for fans to go and watch soccer, to try and generate money, to generate merchandising. And the point, as I mentioned earlier, what he was saying was, it's much easier to do it in the Premier League because Sky give you 400 million, because 52,000 people pop up every week regardless. Yes, they'll all buy shirts. Yes, they'll all buy scarves. Yes, they'll all buy drinks. Yes, they'll all buy this. Yes, they'll all buy that. This is a guy who's had to really start from the bottom line up. And in a giant city like Atlanta, in Georgia, in the United States of America, he's clearly done the job incredibly well. And as I say, having been given president in 2014, in 2018 he sells Almiron to Newcastle for 21 million, the biggest deal done by the MLS for a player. So again, as I say, it's pure coincidence in many ways with Newcastle. But what it tells you is this guy is clearly proactive. He's bright. I've talked about his economics. I've talked about his law. I don't know him. I don't know him from Adam, Steve. But I tell you, just the 2.5 minutes on Twitter is enough to make you believe that he's a bright guy. Ashworth is clearly a bright guy, and I think, and this was always those who are well aware of the way that the Saudis can behave in terms of business. This strikes me as being just the sort of environment and the sort of machines that these people put in place. We don't know, having just spent what we just spent about, or just talked about, standing room. Don't forget, it is still within the realms of possibility that St. James's could be changed, that St. James's could be removed, St. James's could be rejuvenated. That something different, completely other than standing up room, could do with St. James's. So we don't know what is in the future, but clearly the good news is progressive things are happening, and nothing progressive happened for 14 years. It went regressive. It went backwards. It went nowhere. It went shite for 14 years. Now it's gone progressive again.
Yeah, good shout. Okay, big shout out as always to our sponsors at this time in the show. Thank you to Spider Miner. Worldwide coverage from the lads, and it's the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks also to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.guhd.com. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in malls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, and to Mr. Vicky's, handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk, 01768 210 102. And thanks to Away Day Clothing, who've come on board this week. Their website will be available next week, and we will give that a shout out then. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video work. If you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video today. Click share to your social media. and click into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans and to make a comment or ask Mick a question. And we're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify if you're out and about. Usually goes up 24 hours after the YouTube show has finished. If you want to become a member, click join underneath to make a small donation, or you can pay a membership fee via NUFCmatters.com, and you can get a pen, a cup, a membership card and a scarf and entry into the monthly draw, or put your smartphone over the QR code. It will take you straight there. Please support the food bank, NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk. The matchday bucket is virtual and it is available 365 days of the year, so you can make a small donation into that if you want, or you can bid on the food bank t-shirt, which is this week's. We made £150 on last night's, which was great. If anybody wants to bid on this one, it is pinned to the top of my Twitter profile at Steve Wraith, and the winner will be announced on Friday. Don't forget as well, you can get a free car sticker if you subscribe to the show. Just email john@nufcmatters.com to get your free car sticker today. The Shearer Ball raffle is still ongoing. Enter now at nufcmatters.com to win a signed Alan Shearer Ball. And don't forget, we are doing a score predictor, the Super 6. You can join the NUFC Matters gang by entering in our own Super League. It's a tenner per entry for the season. There's a cash prize winner every month, exclusive Manager of the Month t-shirt, cash prize for the overall season winner, trophy and Manager of the Year t-shirt. Sign up now at nufcmatters.com. And a big shout out to the Peter Beardsley Soccer School, Monday night training and July, August summer camps. Booking available now. Info at peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com. Get yourself on there today. Okay, coming back to the questions. John from QTech, by the way, has put the link to the interview that Mick was mentioning into the chat. So if you want to watch it, it is well worth watching.
Yeah, it is.
Alan's just said there, the Darren Eales podcast, I've watched it twice. It's a breath of fresh air. Watch the full half hour. War Flags are going to be busy, as are our local musicians. So yeah, it is well worth a watch. I did watch
Absolutely.
last night, which you know, do it. Paul Oxley, good morning. He says, thoughts on Ekitike going to PSG? He says, I think we've had a lucky escape. We've had our time with moody French players in the past, Mick.
Well, I have to say, I'm going to be brutally honest about Ekitike. I mean, I have absolutely no knowledge of him whatsoever, and I think 99% of most people thought likewise. I mean, he was, you know, he's a young boy. Clearly, he is highly thought of, and the fact that he's allegedly ending up with Barcelona suggests that. But have we dodged a bullet? I don't think necessarily. I think the bottom line is we probably just didn't get him. And that's the problem. Going back to everything I've said before, don't get too one way, don't get too the other, don't get too upset, don't get too critical, don't be good, don't be bad, don't be right, don't be wrong. You know, it will happen. Que sera, sera. You know, Rafinha, you know, has gone to Barcelona. You know, Henderson has gone to Nottingham. You know, interestingly, first game of the season, August the 6th. We're probably likely, I don't know, and I shouldn't presume on Eddie Howe to say this, but you know, there's every chance that Henderson will be in one goalpost and Pope will be in the other, and one might have gone one way and might want have gone the other. You know, had we done the Henderson deal, Forest may well have signed Pope. Who knows? So you know, you've just got to wait and see what happens. As I say, Ekitike, good luck to the young man. If he goes on and has a fantastic career, then fair enough. If he goes on to be an absolute world beater, as Rafinha probably would do as well, potentially at Barcelona, then sometimes you have to hold your hand up and say that at this moment in time, for a Newcastle United football club who have somehow managed to get themselves into 11th spot, are in a bit of an upward spiral and are doing very well and hopefully going to improve again for the next season. But we're not competing with the Barcelonas of this world. We're not competing with Christian Eriksen going to Manchester United instead of Newcastle United. That is just the reality of the situation. And Eddie Howe will know that. Dan Ashworth will know that. Darren Eales, as chief executive, will now know that as well. Yeah, that is just the reality of the situation. Sometimes you just have to hold your hand up and say, We're just not, at this minute in time, in a place that will dictate to footballers that they would rather go to St James's Park than the Nou Camp. It's very simple.
John, good morning. He says, hi. Do you think we'll get a new striker in before the season starts, Mick?
I don't think there's any doubt at all. I don't think that there has to be, Steve. There has to be. Now, if you said to me, would you be disappointed if they were brave enough and bold enough to say we're not taking somebody for the point of saying somebody, then maybe I might think that slightly differently. I'll go back to everything about Chris Woods. Chris Woods at the time in January was a much, much needed and was a proven part of a run of 9 games unbeaten. But he cost 25 million. He cost too much. It wasn't at the amount of goals that he scored, it wasn't a worthwhile investment. But it did the job from January through to May. But this is different. This is different. This is about starting a season in August, looking for somebody who could potentially be a proven player for Callum Wilson or alternative to Callum Wilson if Callum Wilson breaks down. Now that for me, Chris Woods doesn't fit that he doesn't fit that part. So I think, yes, we need somebody in. Yes, I'm hoping we will get somebody. But if we don't get somebody that we necessarily don't want, do we hang on? I just don't think we can. But I would be almost happier if they refused to just do it for the sake of doing it and stuck on and out of for January or later on in the season to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. We will get somebody in. I just think it could be towards the back end of the window. BJT, lots of chat going on about Ekitike. Stade Reims have confirmed they have reached an agreement with Paris Saint-Germain. Ekitike have also revealed PSV are paying less than what Newcastle offered for him. But it seems to be just going backwards and forwards. Interfering agents. That's what that story seems to be all about for me. Paul says, Mick, can you remember John Dahl Thomason in one pre-season banging goals in for fun? He says, I always remember one of your lines on one of those pre-season games. He's going to do a Solskjaer, this kid. But sadly, he didn't. Yeah, I mean, that was that season as well, wasn't it? When Shearer got the cruciate or damaged his ankle. I can't remember at Everton in the pre-season. And the one you mentioned at the top of the show and the try to keep Selez. And he was never a striker, John Dahl Thomason.
Well, the biggest talk about, or the biggest talking point with John Dahl Thomason was the fact that on his debut at St James's, first day of the season, he got a 1-on-1 with the keeper from halfway, and he completely lost it. And he, from then on in, never really recovered. He just couldn't. The crowd. It was all set up for John Dahl Thomason, 1-on-1 with the keeper, 50 yards, fluffed it completely. Never really got that going again. But went on and had a good career, had a very good career at AC Milan, etc., etc. Now, of course, is manager at Blackburn Rovers. There's no hard and fast way of doing it. Some players mature differently. Some players, come on later on in their careers. Whatever. Ekitike. I've forgotten about Barcelona. Of course, it's Paris Saint-Germain. Again, with Paris Saint-Germain, it's the French connection. They are. They're a very. There's a lot of players within French football who stay and stick within French football. So I can see why it would be very easy for him to have his head turned to go to Paris Saint-Germain rather than go to the northeast of England or anywhere else for that matter.
Yeah. Good question from Graham TC Travels. He says, do you think they've got in mind January? So if we have a real opportunity, a good start, then maybe pushing the boat out for Europe if Europe was on the card, say Diaby stays, says Graham. I think, look, this is how football clubs, professionally run football clubs work, isn't it, Mick? They don't do transfer windows one by one. They're always thinking of the next transfer window already.
But I made this point, Steve. I made this point either last time or the time before, because this is a different season to any other season we've ever had since the days of transfer windows. Because as you say there, once upon a time, it's all prepared for. So the transfer window in summer is potentially, let's think about the transfer window in January. This is completely different because from the 14th of November to Boxing Day on December, there is no football. There is no football. And my argument was that if the powers that be, whether it be managers, whether it be owners, whether it be chief executives, whether it be El Presidente, whoever, whatever their relationship is, if they go out and sign 5 players, 6 players in the summer, if you're a manager and a coach and you have a nightmare start to the season and then there's no games played between the middle of November and December, if you expect your powers that be to come and bring you more players again in January, I just don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening because they will quite rightly turn around and say, hang on a minute, we signed you 6 and 7 players between July and August. You played September, October, and then November and December, you disappeared. And you're going to tell me that we should sign some more players? I don't think so. This is why I think this summer window is a more difficult window to do because everybody is very careful about that January might. I think the January transfer window might even be almost be wiped out because nobody's been kicking football for 6 and 7 weeks before January, from November through to December. Everybody's been watching the World Cup finals in Qatar. So I think this is very, very difficult. Which is why I think it's very important we get a centre forward in the summer, because if Callum Wilson stays fit or doesn't stay fit, we need somebody as backup because January there may not be the funds from either Newcastle or for anybody else for that matter, because they've been doing nothing for 6 weeks.
Yeah, I do love this post that Steve Bindlemas has put up. He says, you can't unravel 14 years of dross in one season. I believe the owners will get it done. Good point. Clubber says, does Mick want to tell us the worst centre forward he's seen at Newcastle? Andreas Anderson has to be up there, he says.
Fumaka. Absolutely. You could throw it at me all day and he gets it every time. He was an absolute. What was it? What was the joke? The only Brazilian who couldn't play football.
Fantastic. Well, there's your answer, Clubber. Robert says some of these players' values may go up after the World Cup if they play well. Jason Scott says we need Diaby and a goal machine. And Roger says another very good and realistic point, Mick. The World Cup, but that may show surprise quality players for the January window at a cost. And Steve says he thinks it's a big season for Eddie Howe and also a big test for the style of football, which is a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Eddie Howe has bought himself a lot of time. I think if Newcastle got off to a bad start of the season, I don't think there'd be a knee-jerk reaction from this set of owners, Mick.
I agree, but I think the point is very well made by whoever made the point. It's a big season for Eddie Howe because, as I say, he comes in, he's got new ownership, he gets a fair amount of leeway with 5 good signings, and yes, he was part and parcel of that, and yes, Dan Burn and Matt Targett and Chris Wood to a lesser degree. Did very, very well and were good signings. But they were easy, as I keep saying, they were easy signings to make. They were signings of proven Premiership players who turned out to be very good proven Premiership players as well. Bruno was a slight a bit of a difference to that. But then again, don't forget, he went the first 6 games without really being involved. So he was eased in, but did great at Bruno and will be a top player this season. Trippier, don't forget, was a proven player and then got injured. So again, we did very well out of Kieran Trippier because he didn't play an awful lot of football. My other argument also is as well, and I've said this before about Steve Bruce, and I've said it as well about Rafa Benitez as well, because they both, in the end, happily survived at sort of 11, 12, 13 or whatever it is, because they were managing a Newcastle United with a massive football club, with a massive pressure to bust a gut game in, game out for the last, whatever it be, 12, 15 games of the season, when at least 5, 10, 15 of the season of the football of the league weren't doing an awful lot. I guarantee this. This was a 2-horse race this last season. It was simply down to Liverpool and Manchester City. At the wrong end, it went quite quickly. That probably 1 and 2 had gone quite quickly. So Newcastle were winning games in the way that Rafa did it, in the way that Steve Bruce did it in his final game of the season. You're beating teams who just weren't doing anything. This will be different, because from minute 1 of day 1, everybody is fresh. Everybody's trying. Everybody's pushing. Everybody's thinking, yes, I was rubbish last season, but this season I'll try and be better. And at the sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 level, they're all trying to be the 4, 5, 6 level. So it's a different start to a season than it is to start in that second end of the season. And Eddie Howe will be very, very aware of that. And that's why they will be looking to get some sort of quality and some sort of players in between now and the start of August.
Chris, Steve, I've got all the respect in the world for Eddie Howe, but with Pochettino wanting a Premier League return, every manager needs to look out for him as a replacement with his proven ability to build teams from nothing. Pochettino, I get the respect from him, but what's he actually won? He got Spurs to a Champions League final. They didn't turn up at it. It wasn't a very good game, but I'm not sure. Pochettino would be the answer. But I'm happy with Eddie Howe. I think he's here for the long term.
I think absolutely and everybody should be absolutely 100% behind him, because the guy, and I've said this 2, 3, 4 times. Because in the absence of Dan Ashworth and the absence of now we've got Darren Eales, I honestly, in my opinion, thought that fella from 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight at night, every day of every night of every week from October, November onwards, was like the little Dutch boy with his finger in the dike. He was having to do everything. He was trying literally to keep the waters from bursting. And he did an absolutely amazing job. He did fantastically well. He rejuvenated some players. He cajoled other players. He's not a screamer and a baller, clearly, but at the same time, I think he was hard-nosed enough with 1 or 2 people to give them a kick in the backside. But this is different. Now it's starting with a fresh piece of paper. And from day 1 through to game 38, it's going to be tough. It's going to be different, and as much as he's loyal to the players that he was loyal to for what was a fantastic finish from December onwards, he is going to have to change it as well. He's going to have to say to 1 or 2 people, I'm sorry, you did great for me. And he doesn't feel like the sort of the player who could necessarily do that. And again, going back to the fact that his previous football clubs have been at Bournemouth and been at Burnley. Now, again, that's not being in any way derogatory. This is a big, big football game. This is a big football club. There's massive pressure here. We talked there about Dalglish was mentioned about to John Dahl Thomason. Stefan Givash as a World Cup winner. Stefan Givash, he got it wrong with Givash. He got it wrong here. He was gone in a year. Hullet was gone in a year. Bobby Robson managed to sort of somehow get it back on track, and then after that, since Mike Ashley, it unravelled again. It's a football club that is capable of unravelling very, very easily. These owners and this manager need to steady the ship. So I'll go back to what I said at the end of last season. It was 11th. But it might have to be 11th again. And that's what happened with Bobby Robson. Don't start thinking about 4, 5, 6 necessarily. think about 8, 9, 10, but certainly don't try and worry about it might be 11, 12, 13. It's slowly, softly. It really is. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Andrew says if they upgrade the ground, they can forget fitting a revolving door for managers. We don't need that. Jason says, I think the only thing that could derail the Howe juggernaut is lack of goals, which, you know, I think having a full pre-season under Howe, I think, you know, and looking at the way that the midfield get involved, I still think we'll bring a striker in, but I think
got to.
A successful team,
absolutely got to.
A successful team always has goals from all corners of the pitch. You need your wingers pitching in. You need your centre midfielders pitching in. You need a couple of goals from the back four. You need your strikers to score. And I say strikers or goal scorers is plural. But I think Malcolm McDonald tells a great story, Mick, about when he was at Luton Town, and I think it was Alex Stock used to go around the dressing room at the start of the season and go, goalkeeper, you know, this is, you know, you're not going to get any, but if, you know, there might be an occasion where you get up there, you know, I expect you to get that one in, you know, full back, you know, you don't push up, mate, you know, you shit your pants when you get to the halfway line, then, you know, but I'm still wanting to see 5 from you. And he'd give them all a target. And he came to Malcolm McDonald, I think, at the end of the season and says, I want 30 from you. When he was at Luton Town, and I think he hit 29 in his season when he was at Luton. And you know, at the end of the season, he just said, "You know, I'm sorry, Gaffer, I didn't hit the target." And he goes, "Well, you owe us it next season." And that kind of mindset is something which obviously, you know, you need to have at a successful team. Everybody needs to contribute.
But at the same time, you know, the whole basis of doing what we did at the end of last season, the fact that we suddenly go 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, it wasn't based on scoring goals. It was based on not conceding goals. Amazingly, considering what the previous manager had been doing and the absolute car crash that there was in terms of some of the defending that was being done before that. He's managed to sort that out. So we've sort of done that side of things. We still need the goal scorer. We still need the ability to put the ball in the back of the net to give ourselves a chance, which is why, you know, Callum Wilson is a hugely talented player. But there is that worry. There's that worry about, will he play more than 30, 35 games at the end of the season? Will he get 20 goals in a season? He needs support. He needs help. They need a centre forward. They need a proper player to come in and make life a little bit easier, because we will not, from starting 1 of August the 6th, we will not get 0s and 1s and 0s and 1s and the odd 2. We will find it more difficult to concede goals.
Yeah, John Justice Allen says anyone who's impatient needs to watch some Bruce ball on record. We couldn't even get the ball into the opposition half most of the games, never mind score a goal. Absolute garbage. Eddie has performed a miracle. Steve says we start by no relegation battle and a run in the cup competition, build a strong foundation and then push on. And yeah, what is the state of the academy? It's not great, but it's not bad, Daniel. No. It needs improvement though, and that again will come in time. Bring Mitrovic back. No, he was not for me. Not for me at all. Paul, you make a good point as well. City last season, Steve, not really playing with a forward, scored over 100 goals. Yeah, I mean it can be done.
But look at the players they have. Look at the players they have. No.
Yeah, look at the players, 100%. Daniel says, look at the youth team for goals. There might be a gem amongst them, and that's what they're hoping to do, have a conveyor belt, I guess, of players. Chris says, see, Eddie's only problem is that he and the club don't have the name to attract top players. So winning a cup or getting in Europe is the only option. I hate to say it, but PIF might bring that in to attract the players we need. I love Eddie, but in football managers attract players. So that's a different mindset on you know the potential maybe of them being replaced, but at some point, yeah. Look, I genuinely feel that Eddie Howe has bought himself enough time, and I think that's what will happen. Where else do we need to strengthen? Says Senk. I mean, we know we need a striker. Where else do we need to strengthen? And you know now. You know, going into the season?
Well, The goalkeeping situation is interesting because I've seen a couple of interviews with people saying, do they go with Nick Pope or do they go with Dubravka? I'm not 100% sure. That doesn't really answer your question. But I think it's very interesting that of the two players that we've bought, a goalkeeper and a centre-back, of the two of those, the centre-back was always more prominent to me. Let's put it this way. I think you and I had this conversation that I don't think goalkeeping was absolutely an essential. I don't think it was, I don't think any of us would have cried ourselves to sleep the morning after the night before Nottingham Forest, worrying whether Dubravka is going to take his game at St James's Park. It would have been very different had we not had a centre half. So we've got a centre half in there in Botman. Is there an argument that asks for a second centre back? The right back and the left back is pretty good. Bruno is decent. The wide player I can see, because certainly we are just too inconsistent. We are too inconsistent in any width. Basically, for me, Miguel Almiron and St Maximum are just too inconsistent. They are, they're not going to do one thing or another. They're not either going to be a supply line or chip in with somewhere between 10 and 15 games. 15 goals. Bruno does that, of course. In centre midfield, I still think we're okay. If you perm John Joe Shelby, I know people don't like him, but Joe Willock and also Sean Longstaff, I think there's work to play there. Fraser, I think Fraser came on leaps and bounds, and I think Fraser, who was a good player at Bournemouth, looks to have sorted himself out, both head-wise and, more importantly, physically wise. I think he could be a bigger player in this season than he was previously. Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson is Callum Wilson. Chris Wood, I'll put him to one side, but the huge bonus is getting the centre forward, is getting the goal scorer. Everybody's looking for it. Look at Nottingham Forest, first game of the season. You've got the goalkeeper that, again, Newcastle were after, Henderson, so they did a similar sort of thing. Now they have gone out and got a centre forward with their record signing. I can't even remember his name, Steve. I can't remember his name. If you gave me an hour now, I couldn't remember his name. Never. Most Nottingham Forest fans hadn't heard of him, and that's because Nottingham Forest were trying to do Newcastle the next level on, but Newcastle United aren't the one above that. So the sort of centre forward we need some level of establishment, which Forest haven't got, but we're not going to get the big hitter that Nottingham Forest cannot even dream of. So what do we get? We try and get somebody who's either proven or somebody we gamble on. Ekitike was obviously one of the gambles. Amongst others that are being mentioned, there are one or two on the continent as well. But where do you find them? It's a hell of a job. Finding a centre forward. They are gold dust. Absolute gold dust.
Yeah, they are. And, I'm sure we'll get one. We've said that earlier on in the programme. I'm sure we will get one over the line. That is the end of today's show. Thanks, as always, to everybody in the chat and everybody who is moderating. Mick, thanks for giving up an hour of your time. Enjoy the weekend. Get your Factor 50 on, mate. It's going to be a hot week.
Factor 60.
Take care, Mick. See you next week,
pal. See you later. Bye.